Keep you straight.
We are back on MorningLine. Davidson County Sheriff Darren Hall's with us. Good to have him here. We can open up the phone line, 737-7587. If any of you have questions, comments about things happening, the jail. We were talking about the 2 inmates that walked away from the work detail. More along those lines. Let's go to Rob. Rob, good morning. Hi, Rob.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the sheriff if what Channel 5 reported is true, that prison guards punched holes in coffee cups up there and poured hot coffee on the prisoners, and then went to Bedford County. He went to school to be a police officer, and got certified as a police officer after doing that, and then went to Bedford County and got fired from Bedford County, or got away from Bedford County, and then goes to Marshall County and gets involved with killing the guy down there in the jail in Marshall County, then gets left from there and goes to Mount Pleasant and gets a job in Mount Pleasant as a police officer, and then gets dismissed from there and gets on his record that he was a good police officer, and then goes and says he's going to continue in police work. How can that happen? And how are these police officers not checked out, the people, when they apply for these jobs for
different departments? Okay, yeah, I mean, we've seen some cases of this where there have been head scratches with how on earth did this dude get a job in law enforcement with his history. I'm not talking about obvious background check, oh, he's got priors, we can't hire him. I'm just talking about issue. I mean, when you have someone applying to become a official or guard officer with you, I mean, can you get the details of what his prior work history was if he was in law enforcement?
Yeah, I mean,
or can they cover it up and you can't figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Rob. I mean, this case is very, I mean, it seems very obvious, very complicated in the sense of how in the world could you keep doing this? Here's the thing, and he worked, I believe, in our agency early on. He was marked not eligible for rehire.
Okay.
I don't have the information in front of me. I remember this case. So he's not eligible for rehire. That would tell me if he's not eligible here, I probably wouldn't hire him where you're trying to hire him. What people don't think about in these cases is a lot of times the individual is alleged to have done something like, and I'm going to make it up, punching holes and pouring coffee on people, whatever. And so they resign before able to even be terminated. You see what I'm saying? You resigned. Mm-hmm. It was never proven what you did because you walked away from this investigation. Mm-hmm. We have people who would leave our organization under investigation for something, but you can't ever conclude the investigation because they've left. They walk away. And so when a person is calling our agency or any others, they're asking questions like, how long did he work there? What is his disciplinary history? Well, if you were never disciplined for the investigation because you left before it happened, those facts could be laying there. And I'm not justifying it, but there is no proof that he was disciplined for pouring coffee. I'm using this example. And so that's one flaw. I mean, it is that a lot of times people leave before you can conclude what happened.
So you can't then really share that. Now, I suppose if you had a personal relationship with a sheriff that called and said, look, I'm thinking of hiring this guy. What's the lowdown on it? Now, I don't know. Would you say, look, he resigned before he could do it, but we're pretty darn sure the reason we're not rehiring him was this. Would you? And that's risky because even in our business, we have people sometimes that leave a TV station for reasons that are not positive.
Right.
And we'll get calls from where they're trying to seek another job. And if they weren't good employees, all we can say, and this should be red flag enough, is we can simply refer you to personnel to give you the basics of their history of employment here. Now, if I'm someone looking to hire someone and that's what I get, that person's off my list because clearly they can't say anything bad, okay? Because then you could get sued for costing him a job if you say something bad, right? But you can just say, we can refer you for the details. Whereas if it was me, for instance, that left and was applying for a job and they called that news director, they'd go, oh, he's the greatest guy on earth. You should hire him immediately. He was terrific. We hate that he's left. They'd be very forthcoming.
They'd be lying.
Well, maybe, but that's the way it is. So if they're not giving a rave review and they're just saying, we can't really give you any other information than the statistics of when he worked here, That's a flag right off the bat. That dude had problems.
So you're telling Rob the truth, which is
you can't tell.
You can't say things that the public would want you to say.
Unless
For
it's
example,
on the record, unless he had already been investigated and everything.
Well,
or whatever.
okay, so this guy was under investigation, but you never concluded what happened because he walked away. So
that's what I mean. You never had a conclusion.
Yeah,
that's
the key words we try to use is, was he under investigation when he left? You're not telling me did he do it or not, but if you're under investigation, they can give us at least concern it wasn't resolved.
You could say that.
Right, that's our line.
Because that's the record, it's truthful, and that again, if you're a good boss looking to hire and you get that and you hire him, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay? End of story. Red flags in this day and age, stay away from them.
Yeah, and then we say, would you hire Nick Barris again?
Yeah.
So the point is, we're getting you, the person on the phone, so he worked for you, he left you, would you hire him again? We call it rehire. Would you rehire him again?
Now, can you answer that?
Yeah, you can. I mean, the employer, I'm calling Dallas, Texas. You worked in Dallas, Texas. So Nick Barris worked there for 3 years. He left in December. Was he eligible to be rehired? Would you rehire him? If you say no, thank you very much.
But if you say no, isn't that...
You haven't told us anything.
Except
that he's done.
Yeah. Okay. So this
our paperwork requires us to say eligible or not.
But I think what your point is on how this stuff happens is that there are some people out there that, for whatever reason, are running afoul of what's happening behind the scenes, and they're resigning before they can get nailed. And maybe the checking and the desperation to hire good officers, and someone comes in, well, if he worked for Darren Hall, he must be good. Let's just take him in here. And they don't do their due diligence. There's ways guys like this dude that Rob was referring to manage to bounce from one to the other to another, even though it's absurd how many he made it to.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. It's embarrassing to admit. Sometimes you're so happy they're gone, you don't even deal. These smaller jurisdictions, they don't have, I'm not blaming them, but they don't have very good records sometimes about. So my point is, when he's gone, it could have been the biggest pain in the neck. Instead of documenting why we won't hire him back, it's been 7 years.
He's gone, someone else's problem.
And so it looks like he worked there. There's no documented reason, but when he leaves, thank God. And there's just not really a good way to write that, you know. And so. But it's a Tennessee Post Commission is supposed to, there's a lot of complications about former law enforcement people and what you can and can't do, and you know, there's a lot, like you said, there's a legal challenge out there every time you say something that cost me that job. You know, if you said something to my employer and I don't get the job, I'm suing you over what you told them because you never proved I did what you said I did. I mean, there's all that going on. Yeah,
and so that becomes the issue where you have to be cautious, and unfortunately, it doesn't happen that often.
No.
It really doesn't. Otherwise, I think something would be changed to address it. But every once in a while, there's folks that slip through the cracks, and maybe they know the system. Oh, I'm in trouble. Well, if I just resign before this happens, I can get out of here. It's not on my record, and someone else will hire me.
And it's I mean, you know, I don't know what to say about this, but.
You know where else that happens? Hospitals. There would be a doctor that runs afoul in the state here, resigns, bad stuff, malpractice stuff, but maybe never proven in court yet, resigns, gets away, goes to another state. And they don't know his background, but they say, oh, okay, well, he worked here, let's hire him. And that can happen.
And I'll tell you what, it's going to get worse, because hiring people right now is the biggest challenge we face. We need bodies.
But it seems like these days, more than ever before, because of social media, you can really, if you want to spend the time, find stuff out about people.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot. You're the HR person for law enforcement for a second. Here's the challenge. Do you lower your bar on hiring, or do you lower your bar on keeping people you should get rid of? Because you need bodies, desperately needing bodies. And the challenge right now is, do you lower your standards as to who you would accept in, or do you lower your standards for people you should be getting rid of that you don't?
Yeah, boy, I think it's almost a wash. I mean, there has to be a baseline that you don't go below. That makes me think about another field where they're really hurting, and I suggest you do not lower the bar, and that's bus drivers. School bus drivers, they are hurting so much, split shift, thankless job, not paid a lot of money, and the ones who do it and do it well are fantastic people. But you cannot lower your bar and say, well, this guy, let's put him behind the wheel with 70 kids in the bus. You can't. So at some point, you just say, we don't have a driver. We can't pick your kid up today. It's just the way it is. There's got to be a bar where you're not going to go certain degree below, right? But at some point, too, you do kind of fudge, well, he's got a little bit of history. Maybe he's turned his life around. Let's give him a shot. That could end up biting you in the butt.
It is. I'm telling you, what's the biggest thing we're dealing with in the last 6 months? Our hiring, everyone. It's not just us. And in this line of work, it's hard anyway to find good people, and when you do, you want to keep them. On the other hand, how do you maintain? We're doing all sorts of creative recruiting right now, and doing all sorts of innovative things, trying to change the numbers. But every restaurant you go to is only open at 4 o'clock because they can't find people at noon. Where I go to get my hair cut, they can only open certain hours. I mean, it's just everywhere.
It is nuts. Ultimately, the bottom line as we go to a break, though, on a lot of this is you wonder why they're not. It's pay. Can you pay? Are the salaries low? It's just not worth it. If you pay enough, you're going to be able to hire. That's a given. But can you pay enough? We'll take a break. We'll be back with more right after this. I mean, the money's the big.